live? Welcome back to episode 126.
It's episode 126, yes.
Yay! I know.
I was waiting for you to ask. I was like, I wonder if he's going to remember.
I should know this considering when I put out Movie News Monday, I always put like there's after credits of like the Adam will return and then I know I got it right because I looked it up. So yeah, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah.
It's episode 126. Not too much going on in the world.
Yeah, I think everyone's gearing up for Barbenheimer.
That's gonna be
I
be
think
a
everyone's
weekend.
just like waiting for it right now.
Yeah.
Which I think everyone's like having an itinerary with Barbenheimer. They don't know exactly how to start off. If they want to go happy and joyful and then have like brunch and mimosas after, or then like go in and get depressed and have like a cigarette for dinner.
Yeah, really.
I feel like that's everyone's mentality that I've read online for in terms of this double feature. Because I feel like almost everyone, I don't think I've seen any, at least with recent times, and correct me if I'm wrong, and please, guys, has there been a double feature this big that almost everyone's talking about and been looking forward to? And that's even like with the PR coming from fans,
yeah,
and audiences. I mean, as opposed to the actual PR that they're doing. I mean, the Barbie PR team has been like incredible. They've been doing all these things left and right. They opened up that Barbie Malibu house, and we're waiting for the Oppenheimer team to respond back by dropping a bomb in it. But
yeah, there's been so many memes because there was the pink like explosion cloud. And it said it was a double collaborative. We're basically
they're gearing up forces. Yeah, and then now we're getting. I think we had Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie with like standing next to a poster of Oppenheimer.
Yeah, it's been friendly good luck, like you know, going into your weekend. I mean, I feel like but I feel like Barbie in that weekend is gonna come out on top. Just because you're gonna get more showings in, it's 2-1 basically, so you're gonna be able to sell Barbie a lot easier early on.
Yeah. You also got to think about the intended audience in a sense, because even though it is a movie about this action figure, right? It's generally more crowd pleasing, right? In a sense of how it's, targeted, versus Oppenheimer, that's more for like, I guess, the cinematic nerds, in the sense where you're like, oh, like you are Christopher Nolan fans.
Yeah.
In that extension of it. Because I mean, even though I feel like the hook there is more of
the name,
and also to the fact that it's been constantly mentioned that he recreated the atomic bomb. Not the actual atomic bomb, but like the explosion.
The explosion of it was a real explosion on set
without CGI. So I feel like more people are intrigued in that sense. But I think there's obviously two separate entities here of audiences that are going, and then there's us in the middle that enjoy both.
No, yeah, for sure. Speaking of like memes, I saw another one that said Barbie marketing, and it was a bunch of things that they were doing, and then it obviously had Oppenheimer under, and it just had Christopher Nolan's name. It just like directed by Christopher Nolan, which is like, in all honesty, like I feel like that's all Oppenheimer has been doing, and I feel like that is really truly what's going to sell this movie, is because people are like, oh, it's Christopher Nolan, kind of have to see it, right?
Yeah,
it's just like, who doesn't see a Christopher Nolan film nowadays, especially obviously since The Dark Knight really put his name on the map, and then he did Inception and Interstellar. Like, it's just like kind of, you just don't kind of not see his film.
And then it's a film. His films get talked about more recently.
Yeah.
Because of the duality of them and the concepts behind them. They're kind of more of like beyond the realm of storytelling in a sense. And I'm not like deriding him at all, guys. I just like that's like his resume. That's it's pretty clear and evident. He's very. I think there's range when it comes to Nolan.
Oh, absolutely.
But I want to see him do a comedy.
It'd be pretty interesting to see what he can do. I think another thing too is that, like, yes, Christopher Nolan is like the selling point of this film, but I feel like the one thing that's not talked about a lot is how stacked the cast is. That itself is another thing that's going to sell it, with Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, Jack Quaid.
Florence Pugh.
Yeah, exactly. Florence Pugh.
You even have Josh Peck in there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that is part of the selling point, but
I know, but like, I mean,
yeah, but no,
like,
I get what you mean. It's just like there's a lot going on with this film, and it's just like it's hard to argue that the cast isn't a selling point either,
yeah.
But it all gets overlooked because of the fact that it's directed by Christopher Nolan.
Absolutely. I mean, and you know what? Out of all the, like, kind of referring, I've only seen one trailer for this movie.
The first one, huh?
The same trailer all the time whenever I go back to the theater.
Yeah.
So I think I like that because it's the same. We're still without the realm. Obviously, it is like it happened in history. If you dug deeper, you can find all the little things.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering how exactly the storytelling is going to be. But yeah,
brutal stuff.
But enough of that little rant off. Sorry.
No,
guys.
yeah, I mean, interesting way to really episode. Just kick off the episode. Really. If you already haven't, subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you're not listening, or if you are listening to this episode, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, because we do have YouTube exclusives such as Movie News Monday and our brand new show, TV Inquiry. We just dropped an episode of those both. This past Monday, we dropped a brand new episode of Movie News Monday, and this past Thursday, last week on Thursday, after episode 125, Miguel came out with his own TV show, his own show titled TV Inquiry, which is really, really good, guys.
Thank you. I'm working on ways to make it better. I'm taking the notes that I got, but thank you so much for 35 views. That's awesome. And I really appreciate you guys enduring me for 20 minutes. But yeah, I'm excited for the next episode. I hope you guys are too. And I'm trying to just get you guys to watch the shows that I'm watching. And hopefully, in a sense, my whole mission with that is just to hear my opinion and actually be like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. Or, hey, I'll listen to him because I side with his views, or maybe I disagree with them, but I can still go and check it out for myself. So I think that's my whole mission for that whole show. So I mean,
you had me wanting to go check out both these shows. It takes a lot for me to commit to a show.
I mean, you're not alone. There's so many people that I've recommended shows, or shows that I've been recommended, that I'm like, people have their lists, they have their, of all the shows. And for example, like for me right now, everyone's talking about The Bear season 2, but The Bear season 1, even though I loved it and I binge watched it the entire way, I had so much anxiety with the show. So I'm scared to kind of like retouch that, or like to revisit that with the second season, just because I know that so far I've heard really great things. I mean, there's even people online saying like episode 6 is one of the most stressful episodes I've ever watched on television. I'm just kind of like, oh my God, do I want to sit through that? Do I want to, like, get immersed because I always do. And I don't know if other people do the same thing. I like when I'm hooked, and when I'm hooked into a show, I am like almost picking up that life, in a sense, where it's like, all the characters mean so much to me. Yeah. And then you pick up little habits of them without intentionally realizing that you are. And then you're like, oh my God. I remember when I was watching Shameless and I was like super invested in that show. I was like, why do I want a cigarette? I don't even smoke cigarettes.
I'm glad you bring that up.
That show smokes cigarettes.
Because it does star one of the cast members, Jeremy Allen White. And I feel like a lot of the reason people are watching the show is because of the hype that he's had. I feel like his career is really kicked off due to like just like film people on TikTok just of like posting his Shameless stuff. At least that's how I got introduced to him.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so did I. Shameless was my first introduction to them, but I feel like one way I could argue that is also because of the ensemble. Because even though he is the lead, I think this is a show that gives the rest of the actors their flowers in the sense of how they've been written and how they are also portrayed on screen. And I feel like there's a very unique representation of all, um, you know, groups in there with
Hmm.
all these characters, like, his cousin kind of, who's kind of an asshole, but he's a lovable asshole. Or, you have this new, fresh off, like, culinary school graduate that is so excited, but then is like crushed by the reality that, the restaurant business industry is soul crushing and lifeless. And, people just end up being so and so. So it's like, it's like that type of like, oh, that's why I feel like it's also giving. And also too, just the writing
Yeah.
and everything that's been about how it's filmed.
Yeah.
I've seen like clips of season 2 and I'm like, oh my God, they picked like when I thought this was peaked, like they just keep going, you
Hmm.
know? And that's really great. And I feel like that's what every show should be aiming for. But of course, with the writer strike going on, which is still going, we won't be able to get these shows if there's no you know, rights given.
Yeah. There's no agreement reached.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've yet to see The Bear. It is on my list, of like many shows. In all honesty, also too, feel like we're 10 minutes in. Forgot to mention, if you hear any fireworks, we do apologize because this is being recorded, the night before the Fourth of July, the day before the Fourth of July. So people are popping off fireworks earlier, like they always do. So if you do hear them, we do apologize. Just something we can't control. However, you ready to get into the episode? Because
One hundred percent.
we got some things to talk about. As always, we're going to start off with the box office for the weekend of June 30th to July 2nd. Coming in at number 5, we have Transformers: The Rise of Beast, making $7.4 million, bringing the grand total up to $381 million, 136 of that being domestic and 245 of that being international. With obviously the grand total of 381. Coming in at 4th place is No Hard Feelings with $7.9 million, and its grand total is $49 million, 29 of that being domestic and an even 20 being international. Coming in at number 3 is everybody's favorite superhero film as of late, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, making $12 million. It's currently at $607 million worldwide, 340 of that being domestic, 267 of that being international. Coming in at number 2 is Pixar's Elemental, making $12.1 million, bringing the grand total up to $187 million, 89 of that being domestic and international, and 98 of that being international. Excuse me. And obviously at number 1 is Indiana Jones, making 64 million. I'm sorry, I gotta take a drink of water. I'm here.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely, you're absolutely fine.
I apologize, everybody. I am recovering from a cold. But coming in at number 1 is, like I said, Indiana Jones at $60.4 million, making a grand total of 130 in its opening weekend box office. Any thoughts,
Very good.
Miguel?
Very nice. Honestly, great numbers so far. Obviously summer just started. Uh, I hope Transformers makes a little more, but I'm pretty happy with where they're at right now, I guess, with the billion, right? Or no, million.
Yeah, 300 million
Oh yeah, together.
overall.
Um,
Close to 400.
for No Hard Feelings, I actually just recently saw it with my friends.
Okay.
And I actually had a really good time with that movie. I feel like if you guys want to go see a movie that is very physically comedic, I would definitely encourage this movie. Jennifer Lawrence really does steal the show with this, and she is so good with comedy. And this movie has aspects of like moments that are entirely hilarious and completely like over like just wild. And then there's moments where it really gets you and it gets like emotional and relatable. And that sometimes can be a hard balance when it comes to comedies, trying to find the realism. But for me, I felt myself having the anxiety because obviously comedies like these with a structure set up, are similar to rom-coms where they have, which in a sense, this is kind of in the borderline of a rom-com. Um, Actually, it kind of is without it being romantic. It's just more of like a life lesson. But it has, that formula. These characters meet, they get to know each other. There is a reason why these characters are in this position in this place and time, and then the conflict is,
Yeah.
unfortunately foreseen or whatever, and
Overall,
then
did you
a
enjoy the film
solution.
though?
The formula is there, and I found myself like waiting for it, and I was like, oh my god, because I was like liking where it was going, but then it was like I know what was happening underneath it, and overall it was still pretty great. i
Yeah.
i really did enjoy No Hard Feelings.
I gotta
But
check it out.
crazy to see Spider-Man go from one last week to three, but of course with Dial of Destiny taking over the realm. um
Yeah, I think it was pretty obvious that the Dial Destiny would kind of be at
yeah,
number one.
it did, correct me if I'm wrong, but did Elemental move up a spot or so?
I think that was still in second, because the Flash was third last week in its second
Oh,
week.
that's
If
right.
you're
Flash is just completely out,
wondering,
huh?
yeah, if you're wondering where the Flash is lying, it's currently eighth, only making 5 million. So it's obviously not doing well. We talked about it, basically how this could be a very, very big, I don't know, turning point. Like, even though it has nothing to do with James Gunn's DCU, like it has to have some sort of ramifications. I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I mean, Indiana Jones, coming in at number one. There are concerns with Indiana Jones underachieving, considering he had close to a $400 million total cost. That's including
Yeah.
marketing. I mean, 130 million in its opening weekend. I mean,
These studios have to really kind of like take a step back and be like, these are good numbers.
yeah,
I feel like they aim so high for you know, for something much more but I can say and you're more of the numbers guy than I am, but I consider $130 million
that's
for
a
a
good
weekend,
weekend for any other film studio than Disney.
especially for an opening weekend. Like,
Yeah,
dude, that's what, like a quarterback of what you made,
yeah.
maybe. Continue to grow as the summer continues. I
It's
don't know.
it's gonna break close to even. It may get a little bit over. Overall, it's the final one. It's just like we talked about it through text. What we liked and what we didn't. If you're curious as to what the last one made, Kingdom Crystal of Skull, made 790 million. Dial of Destiny is not gonna make anything near that. It's gonna be close. It's gonna be lucky to make 400 million. I think what studios forgot is, again, like you said, we're well into the summer season. There's just so much coming out, and this is what this
Yes.
feels like. After this month, we are taking a little bit of a slow step back. But I mean, this week we have Insidious. Next week we have Mission Impossible. The week after that we got Barbie Oppenheimer, and then the following week after that you have the Haunted Mansion, and then like three
Oh
weeks
my
later you
God.
have Blue Beetle. So it's like there are we're cutting back on the films. Like, the summer season ends, feels like,
Yeah.
it ends with
And then
Haunted
there's like a
Mansion.
short gap, and then we have the Hunger Games, the songs about the snakes, like in November.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I think I'm really looking forward to. The more I sit through the trailers, the more excited I am for Haunted Mansion. I think it wasn't until I was watching No Hard Feelings that the trailer showed again, and I was watching it sitting there. Even though it's the same trailer, I was like, "Oh my god,
I'm
I just know this is going to be so good." And it's crazy because I did enjoy the Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion. Like, that one was pretty solid too. Look, you can go back on it. It's on Disney Plus, and you can enjoy the film. Like, pick it up. Like, no matter what the time, it's a very enjoyable film. I feel like, though, because of like the attraction, it has more heart. It feels like more in comparison, because that Haunted Mansion, the Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion, is complete different storytelling.
Yeah,
This one is more in its roots.
more
Separate
lore,
concepts, more of the
of
lore, and more of
yeah,
like integrations of the ride, which is fantastic. And it's so nice to see in the freaking, like, the CGI looks so good in that. I was like,
yeah.
cool. The
There
the ghosts look creepy, but
there was this
just
really cool video game. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
no.
Actually called the Haunted Mansion. So when the Eddie Murphy one came out, they had an actual
I played it.
Yeah, you
for the
remember?
PS2.
Yeah, yeah. It had nothing to do with Eddie Murphy's character. It took place like probably 100 years before or 150 years before, and you basically collected all 999 ghosts. I remember theorizing saying that the Haunted Mansion would make a really good like first adult rated Disney Plus series, and each season you get closer to the 999 ghosts, and basically you can take themes from the video game and basically have that somewhat integrated into the show and be like, hey, when it hits 999, that's when all hell breaks loose and things go crazy. And at the beginning of the season, this is how many souls have been collected, or this is how many souls have died within the mansion, because that's the whole premise of it. There have been 999 ghosts that have died. And then at the end of the show is when you get the 999th ghost that dies.
Write this down. Write this down. Write this
I
down.
know, right? I should go like so I can copyright it.
Why
you know,
are you writing things down?
I look. Hold on though. Hang on. Hold on. I'm much more of like I can pitch things. I can't write them. I can give you the ideas to write something, but I ain't gonna go and be like, oh yeah, this character is going to be a middle-aged, newly divorced loser, jobless person. I can't do that. I can't give you the.
I think one of the struggles I've always had with writing characters is giving this person a whole life, like knowing this character inside out from the moment they're born in your head to the moment they die. If you decide to kill off your character, I feel like a lot of factors in my head start spinning, and it's like, okay, well, why would he make this decision? Why is he there in the first place? And then it just prevents me because I'm trying to answer so many questions. And I remember during some of my English courses, I would write down for my creative writing class, I would write down a character and outline them, and it'd be pages and pages of like his favorite color, like what he was spoon fed when he was little, like what his mother would nickname him, like things like that, and it would just never. But obviously, like, you create this character and eventually it goes into this realm. But sometimes, honestly, what I've learned is just to write it, and obviously you hear this. Probably still hear this now, and it's still going to continue. Write it and always revise it. Write it and always go back to it, because you can write something and it may be complete ASS, and then later, 3 months down the road, you come back to it and you're like, oh, here I can fix this, and then it's a whole different story based upon what you originally had planned, and that always used to help me with writing. But
definitely going to take that into note, because I am taking a writing class this upcoming semester.
And I'm pretty sure they're going to tell you exactly the same thing. And that's honestly one of the best advices I retained and obviously learned from that course, because it really pushed my efforts into it. I mean, obviously, like, I have I'll talk to you about that after the podcast.
No, yeah, for sure. No, I completely get you.
Just a short little, like, going back to Indiana, we both saw it. Different opinions. I think we both agreed, though, that it was a really solid film. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Where I feel like it lacked, though, and completely different views. For me, I felt like it lacked a lot. I kind of just didn't like the send-off for Indiana Jones, specifically. I felt like the beginning was too long, when it was quickly summarized later by the introduction of the granddaughter, played by Phoebe Walker. And then I just didn't like, because, like, for example, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I did love, seeing it then, I know people will probably go back to it and be like, this is nothing like the first three. And of course, the three have, it's a trilogy. So to reboot something like that, or remake or requel something, is hard.
Yeah.
And it has an awkward placement. And my biggest issue with this film was Indiana Jones's character, because where we find him is nowhere where we left him. Where we left Indy in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was he had a son, he's married to Marion, and he's in a sense retired, from that life, and for the character of Indiana Jones, you see him grow from basically a grave robber that's seeking fortune into, going through the journey and finding out that the real fortune is his friends and family along the way, as corny as it sounds, but that eventually, because all his villains were on the same page as him trying to get to the treasure first, and they all end up meeting their demise.
Yeah.
And with this Indiana Jones that we see, it's a very rugged, he's a day before his retirement. He's bitter. He drinks. He makes a coffee and he puts bourbon in it. It's like 8 in the morning, and he goes to teach these courses, and where he's at, he's not indie. To me, you know what it kind of felt like? It was like seeing um Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi and being like, who the hell is this guy?
A little bit. I get what you mean.
Like, not like obviously two
Yeah.
different entities completely, of course, Lucasfilms,
Yeah.
but it's like in that sense where like, who the hell is this guy? Like, where is Indiana
This
Jones?
is
And
this
then
is
obviously
a
through the progression of the story, we see him resurface, and
yeah.
even with the encouragement of Phoebe Walker, because I feel like Phoebe, where she works as Elena, the granddaughter, is reintroducing him to the world that he left behind. Um, but going back to my biggest gripe is during the middle of the scene, they disclose, and this is obviously spoilers, and I'm sorry if you haven't seen it yet. They disclose what happens to Shia LaBeouf's character, his son, very quickly, and it just kind of like gnawed him out. Basically, he ends up signing up for the war for Vietnam, and he dies during Vietnam. And the reason why Indy is so at a loss is because of his death. Because in a sense, it was much like retaliation towards him, and then Indy fell into a bottle, and Marion divorced him.
Yeah.
And it was like 5 minutes of dialogue in that entire thing, but that was the biggest motivator for Indy where he was at now.
Yeah.
And I felt like because it was just so dismissed quickly that it's like, well, we'll hate on, like, hold on, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, there really was. And like even me
And,
and you, like we're talking like through text where it's just like, yeah, like how does Spud die in Vietnam, which isn't even viewed as like a real war, after fighting Nazis, going toe to toe with Nazi
yeah,
remnants. Like it's hard to
man was
believe.
swinging the
Yeah.
monkeys in the last film
Yeah.
to like, and it just they introduced this whole Dial of Destiny, which, to kind of question the title, was, again, spoilers, was it Indiana's destiny, or was it the guy who created the gizmo, of like, in a sense, the dial was always going to come back to him, or was this, Indy's destiny to allow himself to live in the present and belong where he needed to be?
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's like a play on words, you know. I mean, because like when I think about it, it's just like, okay, like we've seen a lot in this film. It's just like we've seen aliens, we've seen the Ark of the Covenant, we've
Yeah.
seen crystals that that work in the Temple of Doom,
Yeah.
So it's just like there's a lot that goes on in this. This is really the only thing left that this franchise could do. Then it'd be like, okay, like because like the premise of the film is like you say, like Indy's a shell at the beginning of what he is. His son isn't around, his wife isn't around, the world is moving on without Indiana Jones, and I think that's like the biggest thing.
Hmm.
That is like the cherry on top, is that nobody's interested in finding artifacts or finding ruins anymore. Like everybody, like it's clear that everybody's interested in the space race. And
Yeah.
it's just like you have his class is so uninterested in what he's doing, other than his former colleague's daughter. It's just like so, it's just like it starts off very heavy because it's just like like they don't
Yeah.
like the world.
It's like he's on the cusp of retirement, and he's
Almost feels like he was
trying
forced
to
in.
figure out a world where he belongs,
Yeah,
where he finds comfort in the old and the lost,
yeah,
and he can't find himself in this new one.
yeah.
The space is a frontier that he's never even imagined of going, even though he literally encountered aliens the
Uh,
last one. But
which
I
which
mean,
which is kind of just like in my opinion, like this is something that they could have built on, like send Indiana Jones to space. But then I mean that's when you really really dilute things, in my opinion. Like I feel like that would have really really just diluted the character and even the stories that he's went through, is that he went to space. I mean, it would have been cool. It's just that's not Indiana Jones, and
of course,
and
yeah. And I
and like
think what they were trying to aim was kind of have a heart of the first three,
Yeah.
while still having a more, obviously, like in a sense, kind of more of a modern approach, because like
Yeah.
the space race, of course, was kind of like that new frontier that we're in now, and like, the technological advances that were going on then, now versus now, and everything like that. It's kind of just like, foreshadowing, of course, for his character,
Yeah.
and at the end, it's Elena that's like, you need to be where you need to be, and that is here in the
Yeah.
present. You
Yeah.
cannot live in the past.
Unfortunately, the film doesn't capture the magic that the last ones
I
had.
just, yeah, I just felt like it lacked magic, and do not get me wrong, like it was entertaining as heck.
Yeah.
Some scenes were pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
there are some pretty cool chase scenes that I really enjoyed. It was a lot of cat and mouse. Did you feel that? It was
Yeah, but that's
so
every Indiana
cat and
Jones film.
mouse. It was like, oh my god, like so close, and then oh, they lost it. Oh, here
Yeah.
we go, and then they lost it again. And it's just like, and then some characters were dismissed really quickly. I was like, that's unfair.
Yeah.
Um, but overall, 7 out of 10. I still recommend you guys seeing it if you guys are Indiana fans. Um, I enjoyed it. I think we both enjoyed it, and I
I
would.
enjoyed it. I 7 out of 10. I think I'm gonna be a little harsher. I think it was a 5 out of 10.
No,
I
I mean, I'm being
still,
nice with 7 out of 10.
yeah.
I kind of want to give it a 6.5, but it's only because I have like a bias because I really enjoy Phoebe's character, and it's only
Yeah.
because I enjoy her a lot as a person,
Yeah.
as an actress, because of the amazing talent she has. So, and of course, Harrison Ford, even in the CGI young version of him, he is still the same likable indie
Yeah.
that everyone knows. But
I
again,
really
I
hope
mean,
this is the last one,
yeah,
because
please.
like the fourth one felt like the last one.
It had such a
I
proper
hope.
ending too. Like
Yeah.
he was happy, Mutt was alive. Uh like go back. Like I remember so this is what I did. I went to go watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Hmm.
In hindsight, I should have, 1, 2, 4. But saw Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and the way I saw it, like even that scene where they're at the wedding and the hat rolls over to Mutt, right? Because then people were like, "Oh, is this going to be the last one, or is he going to be passed on to Shia LaBeouf?" Because then Shia LaBeouf's like a really
In
big star.
retrospect, Shia LaBeouf was in his bag at the
It wasn't his
time of
bag
that
exactly, so
film.
it's like, could he
He was
carry
like
on
one
the
of the,
legacy?
yeah.
And
So
they gave him kind of like the director was really smart, and the writing was really smart in the sense of like, we'll give the audience that question and we'll answer it for him.
yeah, they were teasing us.
And they were teasing, and then immediately, Indy's like, nope, you think that's my hat? Like that belongs to me.
Yeah.
It's too sad. And, you can't not recreate Indiana Jones. Like you cannot. That is Harrison Ford. I mean,
I think give
do
it
you
a rest for about 10 years, then maybe talk about a reboot,
just like cement it. Like
It,
personally, I feel like
unfortunately,
studios
that's
should
not
focus
Hollywood
more,
right now.
especially when
No.
it comes to studio and then kind of, being upset that it only made $130 million opening weekend. They should focus more on exactly like stop revisiting things that are, have already kind of been put to rest or have concluded in their own way, because then it just ruins the character and, the legacy of them.
I think
Um,
another thing,
Again, Scream. You can
yeah.
mess me up, but of course, Scream is a whodunit film, and it can change. Right now, it's with the Carpenter sisters. It's no longer Sydney's story, but that's a whole different thing. But I feel like when it comes to new projects, it should be like in actual projects, like new characters, maybe within the same realm, but like new characters, new,
I think another thing that nobody's kind of talking about is that it's the first, like it's the only film under the Disney franchise, whereas a lot of the jokes, like the sexual jokes and the adult jokes, were taken out of these of this new one. It had to have that Disney touch while still having to be Indiana Jones, and it's just like the two just don't blend well together.
right.
And again, it's just like prequel Star Wars is a lot different. Prequel and original trilogy Star Wars is a lot different than Disney Star Wars. I mean, you look at the Clone Wars, how dark that is, and then when it goes to Disney, it is still a little bit dark, but it is, but there are those Disney themes and those tones in there. And I think like that's just part of it, is that like, it's just like the film was only going to go so far and mention so much. Disney is known for not wanting to acknowledge any of its past projects when it acquires new projects such as Star Wars, and so it's just like they don't like acknowledging old stuff that has already happened within the franchises they acquire. Um,
which is dumb because everyone hates continuity issues.
yeah, 100%. And I don't think the Dial of Destiny had continuity issues. It just it wrote things off. It
Yeah.
acknowledged them in such a disrespectful way.
Yeah.
Uh, you
And
know,
like in hindsight too, at the very beginning, after that very long, you know, preface, um, we see kind of like the picture of Mutt in uniform, but it's like a blink and you miss it next to his father. And then there's the American flag wrapped in a triangle, we usually get.
yeah, yeah. When a soldier passes, that's what you think
Yeah.
of.
And I didn't connect the two until that conversation happened. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, really?
Yeah,
Anyway, I think, yeah,
yeah. Ready to get
justice for
into
Mutt.
yeah, justice for Mutt. Ready to get into our two topics today.
Yeah. Geez. Actually, this is news to me, and I'm actually really kind of interesting. I have an article pulled up by Verity, written by Seth Sharf, and it's basically an update on Daniel Kaluuya's Barney movie.
Mm-hmm.
That is a A24 type film that's surrealistic and for adults, but that it's not R rated. So how? So in a sense, to kind of just go off the article, what they've introduced is a film that is basically more of revisiting Barney as an entity and how it holds throughout, like, the strenuous times, in the sense where it's his basically his motto or his life was like, I love you, you love me. And it's more of like a millennial approach of like seeing him, because we clearly grew up with Barney,
It's
and then
it's
he was just
definitely
kind of
gonna be adult
dismissed.
like targeted as it said.
Yeah, and it was just dismissed after, because, as stated here in the article, Barney was a figure in many of our childhoods, and then he disappeared into the shadows, left misunderstood. We're excited to explore this compelling modern day hero and see if his message of "I love you, you love me" can stand the test of time. Um, it's currently still in development, but they're leaning more into millennial angst of the property rather than the fine tuning for the kids, which is why they're hinting like that it's not an R-rated film, but it's more matured audience
Yeah.
oriented, and it'll focus more on the trials and tribulations of being a 30 something growing up with Barney, level of disenchantment with the generation. So
Pretty interesting.
that's, I mean, to call Barney a hero.
Barney had an influence though. Barney had an influence. I mean, okay, maybe hero is a little far fetched, but in the 90s, Barney was the one of the shows to watch.
Barney was, yes, 100%. Okay.
They had
I'm just questioning
Christmas
the article
specials.
and the terms of them using hero, because I mean, like, I mean, actually, this is quoted from from Kaluuya, but
Maybe he's a hero to you don't know. Hey, we don't know the impact Barney had on Daniel Kaluuya's life.
yeah, that's true.
You know, we
That's
don't.
true.
Hey, I'm just saying.
Barney
I'm
was
just
basically
saying.
like, from what I know, and from the Disney Channel actors that I grew up with, for example, like Selena Gomez, she was on Barney and
Yeah,
then she
she
went on
was.
to Disney,
Yeah.
So was Demi Lovato. Um, in a sense, there's that pioneer, right, aspect. There's that foundation. You
Yeah.
grow up with Barney, and then you get, and then you kind of leave him behind because you outgrow, you move on to bigger things, or, your life happens and everything, of course,
Yeah.
all that. So to bring into light, I think, I mean, it's an interesting pitch.
I think it's gonna do well.
Interesting pitch.
I think it's gonna do well.
I mean,
Because I read somewhere it was also it's also supposed to be heartbreaking. Which what like okay, hear me out. But it's just like what
okay.
if they have original actors come back for this film
Oh, like the
and
people that starred on the show?
some like let's say it's speaking hypotheticals and they're like and they get Selena Gomez to like sign on for this film, you know, and reprise whatever character she was in that you know in that show and it's like Barney coming back and revisiting them, and it's kind of like the world, what has happened to the world since Barney's been gone, and that's the heartbreaking aspect of it because, like you said, the world has moved on from Barney. Barney went silently into the night without a trace, you know, and it's kind of like, and that's the I love you, you love me, you know, like premise of it. I mean, I could see it be working. That would be very heartbreaking.
I have so many hypothetical. I mean, like scenarios where, for example, I'm thinking of it from a horror perspective. For example, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which had a very meta approach
Mm-hmm.
to it, where Freddy transcribed from him, like, so a Nightmare on Elm Street is an entity within this film, and the actors are playing themselves, but in a fictionalized world where they're the actors, right? And there's a conversation between Wes Craven and the lead actress who plays Nancy, and there's a conversation where she goes, "Wes, are you having these dreams again? Like, are you writing again?" He's like, "Yeah, but there's one thing that I've yet to ask you before finalizing the script." And she goes like, "Well, what is it?" She's like, "Can you play Nancy one last time?" Because Nancy was killed off in like three, and then
Mm-hmm.
this is completely whole different. The way I'm seeing it in my head is like Barney kind of uh transcribing from the art of television in the sense of more realistic terms and being like kind of like a coming of age film, but for 30-year olds, because everyone's version of a coming of age story is like after high school or like entering college and finding yourself there, but you really don't find yourself until like after college, and even then, so you're still working on that. So I feel like it could play heavily on that
Mm-hmm.
for Barney, where that obviously coincides, and it's like rediscovering kind of like that childhood, the inner child that you left behind as well with Barney.
Yeah.
And being in your 30s and being like, okay, is my life good right now? Like, yeah, I have a roof under my head, and bills are being paid, but like, am I happy? And how is the
Yeah.
world around me? you know
And then it's revealed that Barney's kept tabs on all of them throughout the years.
yeah,
And
and then
that
like, he's going to
adds
return
to
for
the.
Avengers King Dynasty.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Thanos will return. He's a Thanos variant.
He's basically a
Yeah,
Thanos
so
villain.
there's going to be three Thanos variants. Obviously, Thanos
Gonna
himself,
show up in like
Barney, and
a
Grimace.
red band trailer. He's gonna have his little giggle, and he's like, "I am inedible."
So we got three Thanoses confirmed. But I mean, I'm all on board. When I was reading the article, I'm all on board. I'm all on board with it.
Yeah, I like it's cool. I
Yeah,
like
it
it.
definitely.
What worries me is the script's got to be good. You know what I mean? It's in development by
Yeah.
Kaluuya. Kaluuya, he said that. He actually stated as well, adding, saying, "I ask for high standards on anything that I work on, and I'm producing this one, so it's still in development." I like that. I like that. There's input from the actors as well, and I think being a producer on it would obviously help reach that goal of his. Obviously, is it an interesting pitch? Of course, but it's something that could be definitely be portrayed if everyone's on board, and also too, um, I just want there to be a script.
Yeah.
And right now, with like obviously the writers' strike, it's kind of hard to kind of put your place your bets on future projects because everything's either being halted
Yeah.
or in development as this is happening.
I think there's some good to the writers' room, the writers' strike, just because once it does end, I feel like there's going to be a lot of fresh ideas. There's going to be a lot of good ideas, considering they haven't been writing. They've been able to play with, and essentially being in their minds, and it's just like create probably ideas that wouldn't have happened because they're having unfair wages and they're not willing to put in that, that extra mile that, now they would, because they would get that additional funding, or that additional, money made, but
Yeah. I mean, it's like a break in a sense, but also too they're out there, striking. But to the Barney film, I hope. I can't wait for the trailer.
yeah, me too. Yeah, I can't wait to
Yeah,
see
and
it. I think it's gonna be
I'm excited
fantastic.
that Daniel Kaluuya is behind the project. He's a great actor, and I'm excited to see him in more things as well.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. We got one last topic. Um, we got Greta Gerwig set to write and direct two Narnia movies for Netflix. IGN broke the news. From Barbie's closet to a very different kind of wardrobe.
oh,
I
is that
love
the
that
title?
idea. No, that's like that's the subtitle. But I do like
Ah,
that. Adele Anchor's Range at IGN wrote it. I do like that subtitle though. And she goes on to write in it. Greta Gerwig has secured a deal with Netflix to write and direct two films based on C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia. After playing dress up in the Barbie's closet to bring the world's most famous doll to life with Margot Robbie in this summer's big screen trip to the Dream House, Gerwig is set to step foot into a very different kind of wardrobe to explore a world of fantasy and magic. According to her most profile piece in the New Yorker, Gerwig will helm at least two Narnia films for Netflix as a part of the streamer's long gestating plans to bring the beloved Chronicles of Narnia series to life through multiple movies and TV shows. I guess it says here that Netflix acquired a multi-year deal with the C.S. Lewis company back in 2018 to
yes, I
help.
remember them making the announcement.
Yeah, I don't remember this, to be entirely honest, but
Yeah,
they acquired the rights to it in 2018, or the rights to make the films. Pretty interesting. How do you feel about this?
one first topic off the bat. I mean, first opinion off the bat. I thought looking back that they were gonna make it into a TV series.
It do a lot better as a TV series.
I feel because of there's obviously so much storytelling, and
Yeah.
so far the movies that we got only cover certain books, and even then it's like three books in when we get introduced to the Chronicles of Narnia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I remember watching the movies first before even finding out about the books, and then finding out through the internet that there's like the magician's nephew, and then there's like the it's like a
Like nine
freaking
books.
there's nine books in there.
There's like, I don't know if that's how many there is.
Yeah, what I want them to do with Greta Gerwig, I really want her. One, very proud of her, very excited for her. I want her to do the first two films because it would set a precedent to kind of obviously introduce a new version, a new world of Narnia. But the best thing about this is that if we start from book one, we're getting a whole revamp in a better way,
Mm-hmm.
a more book, um, a more cleaner book adaptation of the Chronicles of Narnia. Um, no disrespect for the Chronicles of the OG films. I love Prince Caspian too. That was great. Voyage of the Dawn Treader kind of fell off for me, but it's fine. Which fun fact, that was the first time I got introduced to Will Poulter because he played the cousin. Um, Everyone was like the kid with the eyebrows, and then he went to go do We're the Millers, and he got more. But anyway, that's cool. That's exciting because technically that starts the magician's nephew starts with the Pevensey, like their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, if I'm correct. I hope I'm correct because I remember
I've never
I read.
read the books. I've
Yeah,
only seen.
it starts off completely and it sets them. Um, but but fun fact too, the Chronicles of Narnia is very uh actually I don't know if this is a fact. I could be wrong, but it's very Bible core, like Bible oriented in a sense. Like there's like Genesis in there a little bit too, and
Mm.
a little like obviously like a little influences. It's not like directly, but Aslan is kind of conceived to be God in Narnia,
Yeah.
and then there's like all these other things in there as well. but for Greta Gerwig to set the precedent for this world of Narnia would be fantastic. And then I think she recently stated that she wanted, instead of being, she's doing really great with her career right now with directing. She wants to go and be an entity in a studio sense where she's like that studio, that movie studio. She wants to be another competitor in this world, but obviously in a world where her studio would be that. And with if I feel like there will be success with Barbie, and that will just launch her into doing these films, and there's more success here too. I can definitely see that happening for her. I've enjoyed every Greta Gerwig film. Honestly, my favorite one has been Little Woman.
Mm-hmm.
I love that movie. It made me cry, and it's really good, really, really, really good. But to see that to set the stage, and then obviously if they're really going to do 9 movies of these, or if they're going to
there's 7 books. There's 7 books. However, they weren't released in chronological order. So when the first 3 films were released in the publication order, so the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and then the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. However, chronologically, it goes The Magician's Nephew, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, The Horse and His Boy, Prince Caspian, the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, and then The Last Battle.
Which Jinx. Continue. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, obviously, I hope they go in chronological, just because it's just like it can get messy, especially if you're gonna have any like returning characters in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and even The Horse and the Boy and the Magician's Nephew. I feel like chronological is obviously best, just because you don't want your actors getting too old.
Well, the good thing about the books, though, is because every book is a different protagonist.
Uh-huh.
So you start off with like the parents,
and
then you follow one of them in the second book, and then you get introduced to the Pevensey kids.
Okay.
And then by Prince Caspian, they're back again. And then by Voyage of the Dawn Treader, it's just like Edmund and Lucy, and then the cousin, Will Porter. And then they're no longer there. Lucy and Edmund are no longer. And then it's like Will Porter's character, which I forget his name, and then another girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then it isn't until the last battle where they're all come back to go into Aslan. But the really kind of like crazy part of it is that they have to die to get back into Narnia. And they die in the real world, but they live in Narnia, which Narnia is also meant to kind of represent heaven in that sense, because it's pretty crazy. The only person that doesn't come back at the very end is Susan, which I'm not sure why. And according to C.S. Lewis, it's because she just matured and she lived her life. But everybody else went back.
Yeah. I remember being so annoyed when The Voyage of the Dawn Treader came out, and both Susan and I forget the oldest brother's name weren't there. It's kind of just like, I like, why do I even care?
Peter was goated, bro.
Huh?
Peter was goat.
The two oldest, and then the two younger kids weren't. The 2 younger siblings were annoying.
I didn't like Edmund in the Chronicles of Narnia, but I loved him in Prince Caspian, because he brought a level of like, hey man, remember who the real enemy is. Peter. And because Peter was getting so lost, Peter was just like, I went from a king to being bullied and, boarding school. What the hell, there's that conflict there. And if you watch these movies, they still kind of hold pretty well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can see Netflix casting, like going a little bit off tangent from the books and having a set cast for the 7 films, just because it's better for marketing.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I remember like it took off really well. There was so much magic in there, and they can captivate that for sure. It's just another factor, though, is that it's Netflix producing them.
Yeah.
That's
another thing, true. It can get canceled like halfway through. They're going to
be like, oh, yeah, by the way, like, yeah, we're done. It's in post-production. We're not making the other films.
You're only getting
Sorry,
the
now
Lion, the
we
Witch,
only
and the
get two
Wardrobe this
Greta
time.
Gerwig films confirmed. That's it. Which I would be okay with, but then that sucks because then in that sense that puts her in a position where she can't continue out the story the way she intended to.
I think though, in the sense where like Netflix, if you kind of know what you have here, you know that you can't just go and be like, hey, we can only do 3 of these films, we can only do 4. You're signing up to do 2 already, so you're more than a third of the way through. You're about a third of the way through.
How I see them kind of going at it as well is kind of like doing them like 2 books in one.
It's a possibility, but then it feels rushed.
And then, but yeah, there's that fear because there's so much that can, even when you do put a book to film, the film already feels rushed too because there's so much taken out,
Yeah.
and that's why I feel like when I remember it got introduced, I was like, oh great, because it's Netflix, it's going to be a TV series,
Yeah.
and there's so much room there to grow with. Of course, obviously with the anticipation of HBO Max's Harry Potter TV series coming to fruition sometime in the near future, there's much more there to explore. And with Narnia, that's the same type of world as well, in the way that it's vastly
Fantasy
changing.
and adventure and a bunch of
Exactly. And it like
mythological creatures and
kings and queens,
yeah.
and like uh, you know, it's pretty honestly, I really love the world of Narnia. I think I fell in love with it the first time I saw it, and I love the idea of that being a reality. I remember like when I was little going into closets, not metaphorically, but I'm gonna but like going into closets and be like, oh my god, Narnia. And no, it would just be the end of a wardrobe or a closet. I was just hoping to be there. And I remember getting the game and being like, this is cool. I get to, play and fight the White Witch, which then we had Tilda Swinton as the White Witch.
Yeah.
She was great in that, super menacing, like beautiful, but
This is
deadly.
such an underappreciated actress.
Yeah. Question to the people and to you, Adam.
Yeah.
Do you consider the Chronicles of Narnia a Christmas movie?
No, did it come out during Christmas?
No, but it has Christmas in it.
I don't remember. See, I think I had to go watch them now, or at least the very first one.
Yeah.
To answer that.
Yeah. It also like it has some pretty strong themes in there too. Like the book is like if you go on YouTube and you kind of watch like a timeline thing, right? You can encapsulate all that in like 30 minutes or less. But it like demonstrates that C.S. Lewis was like in his bag with these books because they originally were intended to be kid stories, and they are.
Yeah.
They're young adult in the sense where there are some themes of like obviously like adulthood and then like life and death and metaphorical political figures in there that are transcribed to be these villains and stuff like that. It's a really interesting world, and I hope they really get the magic of it. And I'm coming off as a big fan, but it's just because I love the movies.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. I think when you're committing to 2, I would hope it would say that Netflix is all in on this.
And also, if Greta Gerwig is committed to two films, which I feel like will be her first time doing a sequel to one of her films.
Possibly. Yeah, I don't have her films pulled
up.
I
feel like it could.
But she's committed to at least 2 films.
She's committed to the 2 films, so meaning that they met with her. She read the script, possibly, or she saw the vision board of it.
Yeah,
and she's like, I like this. I can tackle it. And also, it would be completely out of her realm in a sense because everything she's made so thus far, with the exclusion of Barbie, of course, because that's also kind of pushing that limit of that boundary, right?
But there's a lot more realism to Barbie than there is what I feel.
Exactly. It's like a more of like a fantasy.
Yeah.
A fantasy realm of that.
Yeah.
Can she do fantasy? And I want to see that because I believe in her.
No, right, yeah, no, completely hear you. I think it's going to be interesting, because like you say, it's out of Greta Gerwig's realm. But I'm nevertheless excited to see her tackle something like this because, you know what it kind of reminds me of is it kind of it kind of reminds me of when Jordan Peele said he's going to do a horror film, and you're kind of just like,
Oh,
I can't see that because of he's funny. Whereas Greta Gerwig, it's just like this is completely out of her realm in terms of fantasy and adventure and mythological creatures, all that good stuff. But then it's just like, okay, but then like there's an opposite, because like how many nowadays do we see comedian actors then start doing serious roles? So it's just like I think, hey, if you can do it, do it. It's just like, and if Netflix trusts her, like then everybody else should too.
yeah, of course. And I feel like with everything she's made recently, I think that
She's
that will
starting.
skyrocket.
Yeah, she's
I think
starting to
she's.
kind of get in her bag. She's gonna
Yeah,
make money with Barbie, uh, which is gonna get her attention, a lot of attention of studios. So Oppenheimer, Barbie, in my opinion, both easy $1 billion films. I mean, we'll
my
see,
God, yeah, we'll see who wins that
but
war.
Barbie will reach it first. Oppenheimer will probably be
Yeah.
higher into the billions than what Barbie is.
It's just like, I mean, and then you have Mission Impossible there too, which obviously, in a sense, in its own right, it's a contender, but I feel like it's third. I feel,
It's
or
it's third immediately the week after it comes out.
yeah,
Barbie's gonna be number one. Barbie's number one. Oppenheimer's number two, and it just has to go because Barbie can sell more. It's easier to.
yeah,
It's gonna be easier to sell a Barbie film because it's an hour and a half as opposed to
and
three
it's a
hours.
shorter film.
Yeah, exactly. You can sell two. It's a 2-to-1 ratio essentially for that film.
Yeah, because
Um,
it. Yeah, people are gonna go to a movie that is more appealing to them. Um, and I recently saw the first we feast episode with oh my God, McCarthy,
Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah, Melissa McCarthy,
Hmm.
and Sean Evans asked her about the genre of comedy and where it stands within other genres, and she's like, I prefer comedies over anything because comedies can be horror, can be multifacets all at the same time, but there's so much sadness already going on in the world that if you kind of forget about comedy or you just oversee it, the world kind of you no longer looking at movies for enjoyment, or you don't no longer leaving a movie like with
Yeah.
like that sense of like life altering.
I think it just goes to what you're looking for when you're going to the movies. Because, like
Yeah.
for example, like my mom likes comedy and just romance films, whereas us, we can watch it all. It's just like we
Mhm.
go to, obviously, I mean, we have a movie podcast. So I would hope that we would watch majority of it.
Yeah.
So it's just like, but like, yeah, to the average person, well, but then it's just like Marvel dominates the bar. Superhero films dominate the box office. So it's just like, that's really what anybody really wants to see nowadays.
Yeah, I think right now it's again studio heads going where the money is and investing in that only because of the fact that it's already in like it's gonna be a guaranteed so and so. But obviously, with recent movies like Ant-Man and the Wasp, The Flash, there is that decline.
Yeah.
And there's going to be obviously if they haven't had this discussion already, they're going to be like, we are fumbling our own bag just
Yeah.
by like producing so much and not really focusing on like the material.
Well, I mean,
And
with the Flash, there's a lot that goes into it. See, like DC has its own problem in itself, where just like it's constantly resetting its universe every couple years, and now when nobody cares, you're committing to a 10-year plan. Like that's hard to do. Marvel, unfortunately, is catching up from not being able to release stuff in an entire year. So we're not getting as much Marvel, but it's just like I feel like it was just too much all at us every single month. Whereas like, all right, like we're not in a rush to go see these films. Ant-Man and the Wasp is a little different just because it's just like they're yeah, it didn't do as well, but it's just like at the end of the day, it isn't a serve a purpose. I think there is gonna be a part of it where it's just like we're gonna have to go revisit just because Jonathan Majors is Kane character, even Loki season 2. But I mean, it's just like the cinema's in it is in an interesting place right now. So it's just like there's a lot going on because some things do better and you don't expect them to. It's
Yeah.
very
I think
unpredictable at the box
I
office lately.
wonder what historians will call this era in
Post
like
pandemic era, post blip.
post blip. Yeah, they might even
You
take
know,
influence from the art for
yeah,
sure. You know how like like back in the heyday they called all the Hollywood golden era,
yeah,
and like even comic books called it the golden era. Uh, which all that stuff. I wonder what they're gonna call it. Obviously, it's gonna be something superhero related, but I wonder what they're gonna call it. The Marvel era, probably.
and it's a good possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it films are in a pretty interesting position, but it's also we have projects, of course, like Oppenheimer coming up, Barbie, the Barney movie, which has a very interesting pitch, and then you have like Mission Impossible, um, a franchise, different type of storytelling, one historically, it's there's that precedent right now of it being solely a comic book cinematic experience.
yeah.
Can we transcend through that and have new types of storytelling,
I don't
new,
know. I
new
think
versions of that? Can we push the boundaries of cinema itself and like go in many ways, which I think we can for sure. But right now, the hype train is comic books,
yeah.
superheroes.
It's funny that you bring up like the experience because I feel like at some point a lot of films are going to be very underwhelming because of the fact that we're going to be going to see these films just because it's either simply in laser projection or IMAX laser or Dolby, where it's just like you have to see it visually as opposed to it being good. Like, for example, like Avatar, visually pleasing, but such a shitty film and script.
The second one or the
Yeah, the
first?
second one.
Okay, yeah, we got to clear that up because I love the first one. The second one did it.
Yeah, but the script was so like it didn't progress past that first hour, maybe even
Yeah,
first 30 minutes to 40 minutes of the film. It was just like kill Jake Sully. That was it, you know. And I think we're kind
yeah.
of trending
Which
into that direction where it's just like where the films are just going to be they're just going to look pretty and that's really all it's going to be.
yeah, but uh, I hope that's not
Especially
true.
especially
But
with we don't know how long this writer strike is going to take,
oh god,
you
yeah,
know.
that's
So,
another big factor as well.
and if SAG-AFTRA starts
The
to
biggest
strike,
factor, actually.
yeah, But you ready to wrap this up? Go ahead
Absolutely.
and sign us off.
Again, if you guys haven't seen Movie News Monday, it just released this Monday, so please check it out and keep an eye out for next Thursday for an episode of TV Inquiry with me. Thanks again for listening to episode 126 of Our Reel Addiction. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, like, and share the YouTube channel. And if you are listening to this, thank you for taking us on the go. Again, you can find us anywhere on either Google, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And we just thank you again for tuning in weekly. We really appreciate it, guys. And we really, really, really love the love. So, as always, I'm Miguel.
And I'm Adam.
And this was episode 126 of Our Real Addiction, Sic Parvis Magna.
Sick Parvis, man.